Buddhāvataṃsaka Sutra. Book 39. Entry into the Realm of Reality. Video 18. Vajramitra. His mind illumined by the lightning of great vision, meditating on the light of omniscience, observing the manifestation of power of essential nature, making firm the mnemonic command of the treasury of verbal communications of all beings, extending the mnemonic command to retain the cycles of teachings of all Buddhas, establishing the power of great compassion as a refuge for all sentient beings, examining the power of omniscience which is the source of the means of perceiving the principles of all laws, following the purity of vows extending throughout the cosmos, clarifying the light of knowledge illumining all things, developing the power of mystic knowledge pervading all phenomena, arraying the worlds of the 10 directions, fulfilling the vow to remember, undertake, and accomplish all the deeds of enlightening beings. Sadhana made his way to the city of Ratnaviaha in the country of Durga, where he sought out Vajramitra. People there who did not know of Vajramitra's virtues or the scope of her knowledge said to Sadhana, "What has someone like you, with senses so calm and subdued, so aware, so clear, without confusion or distraction, your gaze focused discreetly right before you, your mind not overwhelmed by sensations, not clinging to appearances, your eyes averted from involvement in all forms, your mind so cool and steady, your way of life profound, wise, oceanic, your mind free from agitation or despondency. What have you to do with Vajramitra? You should not have any lust for her, your head should not be turned by her, you should not have any such impure thoughts, you should not be ravaged by such desires, you should not be under the power of a woman, you should not be so bewitched, you should not enter the realm of temptation, you should not sink into the mire of sensuality, you should not be bound by the snares of the devil, you should not do what should not be done." Those who knew the excellence of the virtues of Vajramitra, however, and who were aware of the scope of her knowledge, said, "Good, good. You have really made gain if you ask about Vajramitra. You surely seek Buddhahood. You surely want to make yourself a refuge for all sentient beings. You surely want to extract the barbs of passion from all sentient beings. You surely want to transform the notion of purity. Vajramitra is in her house, north of the town square." Hearing this, Sadhana was delighted. He went to Vajramitra's house and saw that it was surrounded by 10 jewel walls, 10 circles of jewel trees, and 10 moats filled with fragrant water covered by celestial jewel lotuses of various colors, with gold sand spread on the bottom, the rippling waters producing an intoxicating fragrance, the banks adorned by many jewels. The house had well-arranged apartments and towers made of all kinds of precious substances. It had high-arched doorways and circular windows, draped with nets and blazing with jewels. It was adorned with fences of countless various jewels, and its base was composed of masses of jewels studded with lapis lazuli. It was perfumed with all kinds of fragrant oils. The walls were studded with all kinds of jewels, and the roof was inlaid with various gems and covered with a gold net. 100,000 webs of gold bells gave off sweet, pleasant sounds as they rustled in the breeze. The house was adorned with sprays of jewel flowers from clouds of flowers of all kinds of jewels. The doors were decorated with multicolored banners of all kinds of jewels. The light of lamps of various jewels shone to an endless distance. The house had diamond beams made from the limbs of gigantic brilliant jewel trees, and it was an inexhaustible treasury of hundreds and thousands of riches in full view. It was also adorned with 10 large gardens set around it. There he saw Vajumitra, who was beautiful, with golden skin and black hair, her limbs and body well proportioned, more beautiful in form than all celestial and human beings in the realm of desire, her voice finer even than that of the god Brahma. She knew the language of all beings. She had a pleasant voice that could pronounce any sound, and was skilled in freedom of phonetic organization. She was well versed in all arts and sciences. She had learned to use the magic of true knowledge, and she had mastered all aspects of the expedient means of enlightening beings. Her beautiful body was decorated with assorted jewelry, draped with a radiant mesh made of all kinds of precious substances, shining with an array of countless celestial jewel ornaments. She wore a tiara of large wish-fulfilling gems, her waist was adorned with diamonds, and she had a lapis lazuli necklace on. She had a large, attractive retinue, all with the same virtues, the same practice, and the same vow. She was an inexhaustible treasury of goodness and knowledge. He also saw the whole house, with all its jeweled apartments and furnishings lit up by the lovely, refreshing, pleasant, blissful, enrapturing light that emanated from her body. Sadhana went up to Vajumitra, paid his respects, and said, "Noble one, I have set my mind on supreme perfect enlightenment, but I do not know how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. I hear that you give enlightening beings instructions, and I hope you will tell me how an enlightening being is to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings." She said, "I have attained an enlightening liberation called ultimately dispassionate. To gods, in accord with their inclinations and interests, I appear in the form of a goddess of surpassing splendor and perfection. And to all other types of beings I accordingly appear in the form of a female of their species, of surpassing splendor and perfection. And all who come to me with minds full of passion, I teach them so that they become free of passion. Those who have heard my teaching and attain dispassion achieve an enlightening concentration called realm of non-attachment. Some attain dispassion as soon as they see me, and achieve an enlightening concentration called delight in joy. Some attain dispassion merely by talking with me, and achieve an enlightening concentration called treasury of unimpeded sound. Some attain dispassion just by holding my hand, and achieve an enlightening concentration called basis of going to all Buddha lands. Some attain dispassion just by staying with me, and achieve an enlightening concentration called light of freedom from bondage. Some attain dispassion just by gazing at me, and achieve an enlightening concentration called tranquil expression. Some attain dispassion just by embracing me, and achieve an enlightening concentration called womb receiving all sentient beings without rejection. Some attain dispassion just by kissing me, and achieve an enlightening concentration called contact with the treasury of virtue of all beings. All those who come to me I establish in this enlightening liberation of ultimate dispassion, on the brink of the stage of unimpeded omniscience. Sadhana asked her, "Where did you plant roots of virtue, and what kind of deeds did you accumulate, that you got to be this way?" She replied, I recall that in a past age a Buddha named Reaching the Heights appeared in the world. When the Buddha went to the royal capital out of compassion for the people, as he crossed the threshold the whole city quaked and appeared to be vastly extended and made of jewels, adorned with the luster of many jewels, strewn with flowers of various jewels. A variety of celestial musical instruments played, and the sky appeared covered by high, immeasurable clouds of celestial beings. At that time I was the wife of a grandee. Impelled by the miracle of the Buddha, I went with my husband in a state of exalted serenity and presented a coin to the Buddha on the street. At that time Manjushri was an attendant of that Buddha. It was by him that I was inspired to seek supreme perfect enlightenment. I know this enlightening liberation of ultimate dispassion, but how can I know the practice or tell the virtues of the enlightening beings who are endowed with the skill of endless means and knowledge, who are vast, inexhaustible treasuries of good, who are in the realm of invincible knowledge? South of here is a city called Shubhaparamgama, where a householder named Veshtila is presenting offerings to the shrine of the Buddha sandalwood throne. Go ask him how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. So Sadhana paid his respects to Vajumitra and left. Veshtila. Then Sadhana went to Veshtila's house in the city of Shubhaparamgama. Paying his respects to the householder, he said, "Noble one, I have set my mind on supreme perfect enlightenment, but I do not know how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. I hear that you give enlightening beings instruction. Please tell me how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings." Veshtila said, "I have attained an enlightening liberation called not ultimately exhausted. To my way of thinking, no Buddha in any world ever has, does, or will become finally extinct, except as a ascetic device." When I opened the door of the shrine of the Buddha sandalwood throne, I attained an enlightening concentration called manifestation of the endless lineage of Buddhas. I enter this concentration in each mental moment, and every moment understand many kinds of excellence. Sadhana asked, "What is the sphere of this concentration?" Veshtila replied, "When I am in this concentration, all the successive Buddhas of this world system, beginning with Kashyapa, Kanakamuni, Krakuchanda, Vishvabhu, Shikin, Vipashan, Tishya, Pushya, Yashatara, and Padmatara, appear to me. In the continuity of vision of Buddhas by the continuity of the succession of Buddhas in one mental moment I see 100 Buddhas. In the next moment of awareness I find 1,000 Buddhas, then 100,000 Buddhas, 1,000,000 Buddhas, 100 million, 1,000,000,000, 1,000,000,000,000, 1,000,000,000,000, 1,000,000,000,000. I immediately become aware of the succession of appearance of untold numbers of Buddhas, of as many Buddhas as atoms in the continent, as many as atoms in untold Buddha lands. I also comprehend the order of preparations of those Buddhas' initial aspiration, their spiritual transformation on achieving the aspiration for enlightenment, the purity of execution of their various vows, their purification of action, their fulfillment of the transcendent ways, their attainment of all the stages of enlightening beings, their perfection of attainment of tolerance, their conquering of demons, the supernal manifestation of their spiritual transfiguration on becoming perfectly enlightened, the variety of purity of their Buddha lands, the variety of their development of sentient beings, the variety of their audiences, the variety of their rays of light, the majesty of their teaching activities, and their accomplishment of the miracles of Buddhas. I also distinctly remember their teachings, take them up mindfully, examine them in action, analyze them, follow them with discernment, and elucidate them with wisdom. I also perceive the successive Buddhas of the future, beginning with Maitreya, seeing 100 Buddhas in a single mental instant, then 1,000, and so on, uninterruptedly seeing as many Buddhas as atoms in untold Buddha lands. I also see the order of their aspiration and preparation and so on, and distinctly remember their teachings, take them up mindfully, examine them, follow them, and elucidate them. And just as I see the succession of past, future, and present Buddhas in this world system, so do I also comprehend the succession of all Buddhas in as many past and future world systems in the 10 directions as atoms in untold Buddha lands. I also comprehend the order of the aspiration and preparations of those Buddhas, and I comprehend the unbroken continuity of the successive incarnations of those Buddhas. I am also aware of the succession of Buddhas of the present in all worlds in the 10 directions, beginning with Vairocana, incomparable, accessible to faith, and the vigorous resolution of enlightening beings, increasing the energy of enlightening beings, unsurpassed by any worldlings, individual illuminates, or enlightening beings who have not reached that sphere. In a single mental instant I see 100 Buddhas. In the next instant of awareness I see 1,000 Buddhas, continuing thus without interruption until I meet as many Buddhas as atoms in untold Buddha lands. I see whatever Buddhas I wish, whenever I wish, and I hear all that has been, is being, and will be spoken by those Buddhas I meet, and I take up what I hear, remember it, examine it in action, analyze it, follow it with discernment, and elucidate it with wisdom. I know this enlightening liberation of ultimate non-extinction. How can I know the practice or tell of the virtues of the enlightening beings who have attained instantaneous knowledge of past, present, and future, who dwell in all concentrations in the space of an instant, who are imbued with the light of those who realize thusness, who realize the equality of all thoughts and imaginations, who are focused on the equality of all Buddhas who abide in the non-duality of self, sentient beings, and Buddhas whose realm is the manifestation of principles, whose nature is clarity, whose workings of knowledge pervade the network of worlds, who dwell unwavering on the seal of the teaching of all Buddhas who are in the range of knowledge making known all realms of reality, who are in the range of knowledge conveying the teachings of all Buddhas. South of here is a mountain called Patalaka, where an enlightening being named Avalokiteshvara lives. Go ask him how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. Then Veshtila said in verse, Go, Sadhana, to Mount Patalaka in the ocean, a pure abode of the valiant, mat of jewels, covered with trees, scattered with flowers, complete with gardens, ponds, and streams. On the mountain the steady, wise Avalokiteshvara dwells for the benefit of the world. Go ask him the virtues of the guides, he will teach you great, wonderful means of attainment. So Sadhana paid his respects to Veshtila and went on. Avalokiteshvara. Reflecting on the teaching of Veshtila, entering the treasury of zealous application of enlightening beings, remembering the power of mindfulness of enlightening beings, remembering the power of the succession of enlightened guides, realizing the unbroken continuity of Buddhas, remembering the progression of the hearing of the names of Buddhas, following the principles of the teachings of the Buddhas, entering into the array of collective practice of the Buddha teachings, intent on the exclamation made by Buddhas on becoming perfectly enlightened, focusing his attention on the inconceivable action of Buddhas, Sadhana made his way to Mount Patalaka. Climbing the mountain, he looked around for Avalokiteshvara and saw him on a plateau on the west side of the mountain, which was adorned with springs, ponds, and streams, sitting wakefully on a diamond boulder in a clearing in a large woods, surrounded by a group of enlightening beings seated on various jewel rocks, to whom he was expounding a doctrine called Light of the Medium of Great Love and Compassion, which concerns the salvation of all sentient beings. Transported with joy on seeing Avalokiteshvara, his eyes fixed on him, his mind undistracted, full of the energy of faith in the spiritual benefactor, thinking of seeing spiritual benefactors as at once seeing Buddhas, thinking of reception of the multitudes of all truths as originating in spiritual benefactors, thinking of the attainment of all virtues as deriving from spiritual benefactors, thinking of how hard it is to meet spiritual benefactors, thinking of spiritual benefactors as the source from which the jewels of knowledge of the 10 powers are obtained, thinking of spiritual benefactors as the source of vision of inexhaustible knowledge, thinking that the growth of the sprouts of goodness depends on spiritual benefactors, thinking that the door of omniscience is revealed by spiritual benefactors, thinking that the way to enter the ocean of great knowledge is pointed out by spiritual benefactors, thinking that the accumulation of the store of omniscience is fostered by spiritual benefactors, Sadhana went up to Avalokiteshvara. The enlightening being Avalokiteshvara, seeing Sadhana approaching in the distance, said, "Welcome, you who have set out on the incomparable, lofty, inconceivable great vehicle, intending to save all beings who are oppressed by various firmly rooted miseries and have no refuge, seeking to directly experience all the teachings of Buddhas which are beyond all worlds, incomparable, and immeasurable. You are filled with the energy of great compassion, determined to liberate all sentient beings, directed toward practice of the vision of universal good, intent on purifying the sphere of great vows, born of the ocean of knowledge of Manjushri, correctly proceeding on the instructions of spiritual benefactors, with the tireless will to build up roots of goodness, seeking to retain the multitudes of teachings of all Buddhas. A mine of lotuses of virtue, fit to receive the empowerment of Buddhas, imbued with the energy of the light of concentration, seeking to keep in mind the teachings of all Buddhas, thrilled with the joy of the vision of Buddhas, your mind expanded by the incalculable energy of achievement of virtue, wishing to reveal to others the power of the measure of omniscience to which you have access through your own mystic knowledge, determined to sustain the energy of light of knowledge of Buddhas firmly rooted in the power of great compassion. Then Sadhana went up to Avalokiteshvara, paid his respects, and said, "Noble one, I have set my mind on supreme perfect enlightenment, but I do not know how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. I hear you give enlightening beings instruction, and I ask you to tell me how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings." Avalokiteshvara said, "It is good that you aspire to supreme perfect enlightenment. I know a way of enlightening practice called undertaking great compassion without delay, which sets about impartially guiding all sentient beings to perfection, dedicated to protecting and guiding sentient beings by communicating knowledge to them through all media. established in this method of enlightening practice, undertaking great compassion without delay, I appear in the midst of the activities of all sentient beings without leaving the presence of all Buddhas, and take care of them by means of generosity, kind speech, beneficial actions, and cooperation. I also develop sentient beings by appearing in various forms. I gladden and develop them by purity of vision of inconceivable forms radiating auras of light, and I take care of them and develop them by speaking to them according to their mentalities, and by showing conduct according to their inclinations, and by magically producing various forms, and by teaching them doctrines commensurate with their various interests, and by inspiring them to begin to accumulate good qualities, by showing them projections according to their mentalities, by appearing to them as members of their own various races and conditions, and by living together with them. Perfecting this practice of unhesitating compassion, I have vowed to be a refuge for all sentient beings, to free them from fears of calamity, threat, confusion, bondage, attacks on their lives, insufficiency of means to support life, inability to make a living, ill repute, the perils of life, intimidation by the crowd, death, miserable conditions, unknown hardships, servitude, separation from loved ones, living with the uncongenial, physical violence, mental violence, sorrow, and depression. I have undertaken a vow to be a refuge for all beings from all these fears and perils. I have also caused a way of remembrance to appear in all worlds, to extinguish the fears of all beings. I have caused my name to be known in all worlds to drive away the fears of all beings. I have caused the tranquility of all beings, in endless forms, to appear in my body, to communicate to all beings individually according to the time. By this means I release beings from all fears, inspire them to seek supreme enlightenment, and cause them never to regress in the attainment of the qualities of Buddhas. I have only attained this way of enlightening practice through unhesitating great compassion. How can I know the practice or tell of the virtues of the universally good enlightening beings, who have perfected the vows of all enlightened ones, who have gone the way of the practice of the universally good enlightening being, who are uninterrupted streams of performance of good works, who are always focused on the perception of the concentrations of enlightening beings, who continue their practice without deviation or regression through all ages, who continuously adapt to the times everywhere, who are familiar with the changing currents in all worlds, who continuously work to extinguish all sentient beings' bad thoughts and to increase their good thoughts, who continuously work to turn all sentient beings away from the repetitious circles of the mundane world. Then this was said. Having respectfully rendered honor and praise, Sadhana, well controlled, went south. On a cliff of a mountain he saw Avalokiteshvara, the seer who abides in compassion. On a diamond slope, adorned with jewels, sitting on a lion's seat in a lotus calyx, the steadfast, surrounded by various creatures and enlightening beings, expounds the teaching to them. Seeing this, Sadhana, his joy unequaled, went and bowed to the feet of the ocean of virtue and said, "Teach me, noble one, with compassion, to attain this good conduct." Extending his undefiled arm of 100-fold auspicious splendor, radiating far-reaching pure light, Avalokiteshvara, the purified being, the sage, laid his hand on Sadhana's head and spoke. "I know a gate of liberation, the embryo of knowledge of clouds of compassion of all Buddhas born of my own love and operating everywhere to protect and care for all beings. I protect all beings from many disasters. Those caught in the grip of enemies, physically injured, and imprisoned are freed from their bonds on hearing my name. Arrows shot at the condemned do not wound them. Weapons break and swords are deflected if they remember my name. In disputes among kings, those who remember my name defeat their adversaries and gain what is good, increase in repute among friends and relatives, and their property becomes inviolable. Any who remember my name go without fear to forests infested with bandits and wild animals, conquering all enemies. For those who are thrown from a mountain into burning coals by malefactors to harm them, the flames become lotus sprouts in a pond of water if they remember my name. Thrown into the sea, they will not die, nor will they be swept away by a river or burned in fire. No harm will come to them, but rather benefit instead, if they remember my name, even for a while. From fetters, chains, and beatings, scorn, humiliation, and constraint, abuse, whipping, threats, and scolding, those who remember my name will gain release. The inimical, fault-finders, those who always maliciously slander, become friendly on sight when they hear my name remembered. Evil magicians trying to kill them are appeased, and no poison can injure those who remember my name. Malicious spirits, fiends, demons, and goblins, life-sapping, dangerous, are all quelled, even in dreams, once my name is recalled. One will not be separated from family and friends, or be joined with the unfriendly or become materially destitute, if one remembers my name, even for a while. Those who remember my name will not go to hell or become animals or ghosts or fall into other unfavorable states. They will be reborn as celestial or human, purified beings. People remembering my name will not be blind, deaf, or infirm. They will not be violent, but friendly and sound in mind and body for countless ages. Those who scatter a handful of flowers over me, calling my name, go to my refuge of bliss. Those who give me offerings with a clear mind will be worthy of receiving offerings in my Buddha land. Purified beings, passing away, are born here, face to face with the Buddhas of all worlds. Those who remember my name see the Buddhas and hear their teaching. By this and infinite other means I guide sentient beings in the world. I have developed one liberation, and cannot know all the virtues of the virtuous. Sadhana has attended spiritual benefactors in the worlds of the 10 directions and has not tired of hearing the teaching of the offspring of Buddha. Why would joy not arise while hearing the teaching? At that moment an enlightening being named Ananyagamin descended from the eastern sky and stood on the top of the mountain range surrounding this world. As soon as he set foot on the mountain, the whole world quaked and appeared to be made of jewels. The body of that enlightening being gave off such a light that the sun and moon were overwhelmed, the lights of all realms of being, fire, jewels, and stars were obscured, the great hells were lit up, the dark recesses of the realms of animals and ghosts were illumined, all ills and miseries were allayed. Sentient beings were not bound by afflictions, and all sorrows ceased. He also appeared to go to the Buddha, causing clouds of all kinds of offerings, jewels, flowers, perfumes, garlands, robes, parasols, banners, to reign all over the Buddha land, and he also appeared reflected in the abodes of all beings, appearing to them so as to please them according to their inclinations, and he also appeared to have come to the enlightening being Avalokiteshvara on the peak of Mount Patalaka. Then Avalokiteshvara said to Sadhana, "Do you see the enlightening being Ananyagamin in this assembly?" Sadhana said, "Yes." Avalokiteshvara said, "Go to Ananyagamin and ask him how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings." So then Sadhana paid his respects to Avalokiteshvara and went. Ananyagamin. Then Sadhana, with Avalokiteshvara's verse of knowledge in mind, had not seen enough of Avalokiteshvara but obeyed his words and went to the enlightening being Ananyagamin. Paying his respects, Sadhana said, "Noble one, I have set my mind on supreme perfect enlightenment, but I do not know how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. I hear you give enlightening beings instruction. So please tell me how an enlightening being is to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings." Ananyagamin said, "I have attained an enlightening liberation speeding forth in all directions." Sadhana asked, "What Buddha did you learn it from? How far away is that Buddha's world, and when did you leave that world?" Ananyagamin said, "This point is hard for celestial, human, and titanic beings, for monks and priests, to know, being the power of an enlightening being, the unregressing energy of an enlightening being, the accomplishment of the energy of an enlightening being. It cannot be heard or retained or believed in or comprehended by those who are not under the tutelage of spiritual benefactors, who are not under the attention of Buddhas, who have no accumulated roots of goodness, who have not purified their intentions, who have not attained the faculties of enlightening beings, who do not have the eye of wisdom." Sadhana said, "Please tell me, noble one, I will believe, I will have faith, by the empowerment of Buddhas and the assistance of spiritual benefactors." Ananyagamin said, "I come from the Buddha land of a Buddha named Born of Universal Light, in a world to the east called Full of Light. I attained the enlightening liberation speeding forth in all directions at the feet of that Buddha. As many eons as atoms in untold Buddha lands have passed since I left that world full of light. With each thought I take as many steps as atoms in untold Buddha lands, and with each step I pass as many Buddha lands as atoms in untold Buddha lands, in all of which are Buddhas. I go to all those Buddhas and honor each Buddha with the finest mentally produced offerings, stamped with the cosmic seal that has no formation, approved by the Buddhas pleasing to all enlightening beings. I also observe the oceans of sentient beings in all the worlds, penetrate their minds, discern their faculties, and appear to them bodily in accord with their inclinations and interests, speak of the teaching, radiators of light, and provide them with various material necessities. I adapt my form for them, ceaselessly striving to guide them to perfection. And just as I proceed in the east, so do I also proceed in the south, west, north, northeast, southeast, southwest, northwest, the nadir and the zenith. I only know this enlightening liberation speeding in all directions. How can I know the practice or tell of the virtue of the enlightening beings who go everywhere, who face in all directions, who are in the realm of unfragmented knowledge, whose bodies are distributed evenly throughout all universes, who adapt their action to all sentient beings according to the inclinations and interests of those beings, whose bodies pervade all lands, who act in accord with the way things really are, who have realized the equality of past, present, and future, who accord with the equality of all places, who illumine the paths of all beings, who do not have arbitrary notions of Buddhahood, who go along all paths without attachment or obstruction, who stand on the path of non-reliance. South of here is a city called Dvaravati, where the celestial Mahadeva lives. Go ask him how to learn and carry out the practice of enlightening beings. So Sadhana paid his respects to the enlightening being Ananyagamin and went on. Continue to video 19.